welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to What's Up Canada. It is Thursday, July 18th, and we're going to take a little bit of a different look at what's going on in clown worlds today. First of all, guys, make sure you double check that you're subscribed, hit that like button, and we're really depending on John Q. Public right now to help us counter the legacy media insanity. And I'm going to start off with this quote from William Bloom tonight. No matter how paranoid or conspiracy minded you are, what the government is actually doing is worse than you imagine. And with the entire world being, polarized by Donald Trump, the election campaign, there's a lot going on in the rest of the world that most people are not necessarily seeing. So we're going to dive into some of that tonight. We're going to talk about some pariahs and some piranhas, and what I see coming when I'm flipping around the information stratosphere from 50,000 feet. So like I said, guys, we are Canada. In Canada right now is probably the most censored nation in the Western Hemisphere, arguably, at least. And we really need all the help we can get. Everybody that's here as a regular knows that we're streaming now 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Central, but the important stuff comes out in the links in the Substack the night of the show or the next morning. So I really encourage people to get subscribed over there on Substack. It's free. All of my content is always going to be free as long as I possibly can hold out and survive on Mr. Noodle and Craft Dinner. I will, because this is more than money. This is about making sure people get enough information so that they can at least make somewhat informed decisions when they're trying to deal with the insanity of the world. So what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about pariahs and piranhas, and at the end of the day, it's going to come down to some people that most of us will recognize. The usual suspects are not having a good year. In 2024, as I've said oftentimes, if people have been following this platform for a while, it's going to be the defining year as to whether we defeat globalism or globalism defeats us. And right now, there are a few brave individuals that are countering this. A lot of psychopathic monsters in the World Economic Forum, the Fourth Reich, as we looked into last night. And I do encourage everybody to take a look at last night's show. I've been getting some really interesting and for me, grateful feedback on societies don't like to necessarily self-reflect when they're in crisis, but I'm seeing that right now is the most important time in the world that we need to do a little reflection on what we're maybe being herded into unwittingly. And this is not to take away from anybody's what they're doing, but just to be wary of some of the psyops and the traps along the way, and where we may end up without realizing it along the way. Did Seamus step down to make way for Mark Carney? That is going to kind of fall into some of the fast flashes through the clown world of Canada. Tonight, we're going to be looking at somebody a little bit more specifically and not Canadian. How many of you guys recognize this face? Right? This is a fellow named Victor Orban. We're going to talk about what he's doing that is triggering the globalists, perhaps as much as Donald Trump's mere existence. Okay. But I do have to give everybody, I want to take a quick second for this. This is a thank you for Truth for bringing this to my attention. I was asked today if this was my account, and I had to take a quick look at it. And guys, they're cloning my platforms. We're being I'm under siege right now. I've not been able to update my website since my whatsupcanada.org website since I got hacked a couple of weeks ago. Now they're cloning, trying to redirect from my X account. So if anybody gets a friend request or sees this impersonation of Wayne Peter 90, please know that it is not me. And I hope that you would report them and protect yourself from them. Um, so yeah, that's something I wanted to make people be aware of. Is don't get caught by these scammers. And there's a huge assault of this going on. It's not just my account; it's happening to others. I'm seeing people are impersonating our accounts and trying to do shady shit. So we're gonna dive into a little bit of what is circulating in the Intel world. Flashback. We're gonna set this up with this 30-second clip about the G7. What India? This is a clip from. I'm not sure if First Post is an Indian outlet, but this is just what India is in the news in India about the G7.
Summit in Italy is over. Now the action has shifted to Switzerland for the Ukrainian peace summit. Western leaders have gathered there in large numbers. So why is the summit even happening? Why have these leaders come together, and what does Ukraine hope to achieve? This is being called a peace summit, an attempt to end the Russia-Ukraine war, but one of the warring parties is absent. Russia is not attending the summit. They've dismissed the entire exercise as irrelevant. Some influential leaders are missing from the guest list. This includes Ukraine's chief backer, the President of the United States, Joe Biden. He's not there. Vice President Kamala Harris is attending in his place. Who else is missing? Chinese President Xi Jinping, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, also India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Reports say Beijing is ready to push a rival peace plan. Ukraine may choose to reject it, but without any substantial gains on the battlefield, Kiev is running out of options. The G7.
All right. So that 30-second clip, none of the big players showed up to the G7 Peace Summit on behalf of Ukraine, primarily because they cannot. It's pretty hard for them to create a peace treaty with an unelected, illegitimate leader, which Vladimir Zelensky is at this point in time. But it's all about the show and all about the dough and the virtue signaling. And of course, our illustrious Muppet got another trade agreement, another support agreement, and this is really what it's all about. But at the end of the day, what Zelensky came out of after the G7 was a bunch of promises. And make no mistake, when people in the international space, somebody like Zelensky and others before him, every one of the useful idiots along the way, when they become disposable, they will be given promises and all of those things. But at the end of the day, they usually find themselves, in a gutter, drain pipe, or under a mat in a hut somewhere. And at this point here in time, this is where we're going to get into some news that is not necessarily being covered, and the fallout and the impact of all of this. So amidst the insane the insane fury and polarization again, that's but really the only way to describe it. And I'm not trying to take away from anything that's going on in America, but all eyes are on one thing. And that always makes me nervous, makes me incredibly nervous when everybody's focused on only one thing. And it pretty much slipped through the radar that I believe it was the day before the attempt on Mr. Trump, Mr. Orban took it upon himself to deliver a peace proposal or points to Mr. Trump. They met in Mar-a-Lago. And this is really significant, mostly because Mr. Orban has been doing this. But at this point in time, right now, with where Trump is at, it's really triggered the global united, shall we say, the new international rules-based order, because Victor has apparently, and this is how they're seeing it, because they don't have any ability to be civil or there's no diplomacy with the United Nations any more than there is with the Liberal Party or any other regime. I got to pull this up here, Amivo. He's absolutely been quite a thorn in their side for quite some time. We're going to take a little bit of a look in here. I want people to understand and get to know who this guy is a little bit, because it's not just Trump. Trump isn't going to save the world alone. I want people to get to know a little bit more about that. Yeah, Facebook is playing a whole bunch of shenanigans. They're making it incredibly difficult. Even yesterday, now I found out I'm not allowed to share my Substacks on Facebook either. So the warmongers, they want it to go on, and that's exactly the underlying current that I think everybody's going to conclusion that everybody's going to come to. Cindy, hey, little farmer. So yeah. I also do have to send a quick message out to Carly. Snail Mail Works. Thank you so very much for my very first snail mail at What's Up Canada. So cheers to you, Carly, for that. Thank you so much. But yeah, so at the end of the day, Viktor Orban is a well-known European politician. He's a Hungarian lawyer who's been prime minister of Hungary off and on, mostly since 2010. He took a break from 2000 to 2003, but he's pretty well known over there. And we're going to take a look at a couple of the finer points of his government. I'm going to start with kind of the last first. So let's try and move this here where I can see it a little easier. In April 2018, he won the election, his party, again, the Alliance. And this is important when we get into where this is leading. Now, this is all intended to connect some dots. The G7, Zelensky came out with a bunch of promises, sparkle toes and twinkle socks and camel toes. Harris were pretty much the only ones that gave Zelensky's little, pep rally any kind of legitimacy whatsoever. But without any of the opposing side, is it actually the beginning of anything? No. So Zelensky has backtracked on that and has now, since this week, he's invited Russian representative to the next peace summit because he's seeing his days come numbered. But with Orban, it's a little bit different. Zelensky's out there making promises, trying to secure his life, whereas what Mr. Orban is doing is being the unrequested messenger of peace, good, bad, or otherwise, regardless of one's political stripes. He, and we're going to get to understand him a little bit more here, has been battling this globalism encroachment for some time, and it's gotten him a really bad rap. And he's just been subjected to kind of some of the similar treatment that the EU imposes on people that they don't like. We're going to get into that too. So he's had pretty much an overwhelming majority in Hungary for a long time. He's been pretty aware of, and this is where he gets controversial. He's made statements that, in translation perhaps were taken out of context, but he made a statement that really got him into a lot of trouble. He said, "Where we must we must state that we do not want to be diverse we do not want to be mixed. We do not want our own color, traditions, and national culture to be mixed with others. We do not want this. We do not want that at all. We do not want to be a diverse country. So this got him much into a lot of trouble over there in Hungary. But at the end of the day, what he's meaning was he wants people to assimilate. That's what he's fighting for. Was right, exactly, Mevo. Heritage, culture, and tradition. And unfortunately, for you might want to think about countries when we remove them and cancel them from our uh, from the table of our government and our foreign policy. They pretty much have no choice but to go and make friends with the opposition. So Hungary has a pretty strong relationship with China. They are a part of the Belt and Road Initiative, but they are also negotiating from a position of refusing to implement globalist policy based on nationalism, right? Uh, but the significant difference is, we don't want that either. But he's been able to find a way, and either he's just got the stones for it to use language that might offend people, but he's doing what his constituents demand. They passed a law in Hungary last year uh, to make it illegal to subject kids under 18 to alphabet soup agenda stuff. Once they're 18, they can make up their own minds. So this is taken as where they call him as a leader, a human rights abuser, all kinds of things. But he's been around the block. He understands how things are done internationally. He's actually a statesman, an ambassador. He has the ability to have serious discussions. And I'm bringing up these different points because that doesn't mean that he doesn't talk with bad people too, right? And we have to understand business when it's done from a multipolar level. Um, the more we cancel other nations, the more we drive them the people that we really would prefer that they weren't in relations with. So this is something that these nations have had to navigate, and Hungary specifically as well. He has a strong relationship with Russia, as well as China, as I said, and typically with Ukraine as well, but he has refused to take part in the Ukrainian conflict. And this is where he's, starting to develop other allies and alliances. And he's taken it upon himself as he takes it upon himself to come out and meet Trump on with the EU chief, Hungary's Orban, over peace mission. They rebuke it. So the EU chief is, saying, "How dare you? How dare you?" And this is interesting because they just had their election today for the new EU leader. Ah, and you'd think that knowing that Mr. Move this again. Given that Mr. Orban understands that Mr. Trump will be the next president of the United States, provided they can keep him alive long enough to do so, I don't think that there's any doubt that it would be in the EU's best interest, knowing Trump's stance on saying that he would end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours, and pretty much the rest of the world is now aligning themselves to that fact, except for the EU handlers. So we saw just over the last couple of weeks where the the rigging of the election, shall we say, or the securing of the election in the UK and in France, is met with some extreme, what they're calling extreme far right parties. Marie Le Pen is involved in that. The European Parliament's largest group is accusing right wing Patriot Alliance of undermining Bloc. And this is exactly the point of it, because of this new alliance led by Mr. Viktor Orban. So he just actually spoke publicly about this. I think it was 2.5 weeks ago or something. We picked it up and I talked about it the day he announced it informally from a hotel. I believe it was at the G7, perhaps, regardless. But this was something that I told people then to watch, because this was not going to be met with much glee. And this was really going to show everybody who's on the right side of history and who is not, who is sold out to the hashtag WEF Fourth Reich and who is not. So he launched this right-wing Patriots of Europe Alliance, and he's got Marie Le Pen and a whole bunch of others now that are starting to grow into this Patriots for Europe organization. And obviously they're going to be along the same mindset as the incoming president. And the Dutch far right are it's funny. I reading their headlines just feels like I got a mouthful of swamp. But this is actually what they're saying. That the Spanish Patriots are far right, and they're joining Orban's Patriots for Europe. So we're seeing this incredibly fast grassroots collaboration, right? And this is becoming world news, except in Canada or the USA, right? This is my point. This is what I'm kind of getting at with here. Nobody here, our legacy media, hell, even our independent media, is not looking at this Patriots alliance in Europe and understanding and seeing the tidal wave of the shift that is coming at an exponential speed. And this is what we're seeing here is actually a realignment, and they are placing their bet on Mr. Trump. And this has got the European Union so panicked that today they're starting sanctions. They're going to try and shut Orban up by already starting sanctions on Mr. Orban's country because he dared to come to Mar-a-Lago and submit a detailed and well-founded plan with Mr. Trump. So what does that tell you about what the EU is actually after? They don't want peace. They don't want peace at all. They want war. And just for people that are curious enough, and I'll add this in the show notes as well, to just Google, Orban Patriot Alliance, and find out what, to me, it's lying by omission. Trudeau's about to make some very bold moves here in Canada out of desperation. We've seen an extreme act of desperation in America on Saturday, and these patriots are stepping up and leading the way regardless. So I'm going to pull up this other little clip, and I'm gonna let her put this in the show notes for tomorrow as well. This is from Alex Christoforou. He's one half of the Duran, which have like 6 million followers uh, on YouTube. And these guys, if you want a daily common sense analysis of what's going on the geopolitical scale, these are my number one reference to these guys. They're But I'm going to play just the beginning of this clip so that you guys can kind of get a bit of an update on what's today's news in the EU.
We must also.
This is Ursula von der Leyen speech for on election day here.
Invest more in our security and defense. Russia is still on the offensive in eastern Ukraine. They are banking on a war of attrition, on making the next winter even harsher than the last. Russia is banking on Europe and the West going soft. And some in Europe are playing along. 2 weeks ago, a European Union Prime Minister went to Moscow. This so-called peace mission was nothing but an appeasement mission. This was a plain appeasement mission.
She doesn't have the guts to actually use Orban's name and accuses him of appeasement. But who's she accusing? Does she really know who she's appeasing? Is it Mr. Trump or is it Mr. Putin? Because both of them want peace. So she's campaigning on her election day today on that. And this is very strong.
This is my video update on this Thursday midday, July the 18th.
So I'm not going to play this whole thing here. I'm going to get into. I really want to show you guys this instead, because this is who you just heard from. Now tell me that is not just like what we've got going on over here. This is what they're protecting at the EU. These are the unelected by us bureaucrats that are influencing and destroying Europe through the exact same things that they're trying to protect in the crime sprees that they're trying to protect here. So her husband runs a company that makes the jabs, and she just bought 100 million buzzard bug jabs, something like that. So this is, if that isn't, we've covered over the last week or so some of the incoming psyops, the buzzard bug being one of the preeminent candidates for that. But yeah, so that's what people need to understand about Ursula von der Leyen. Okay, so what are we going to switch to? We're going to switch to a couple of Canadian clown worlds. That's what we're going to do. We're going to dive into some Canadian clown world. You're right. That's exactly the point. They don't want Trump. They don't want his peace. They want war. It's good for their stock portfolios, and and this comment I want to say thank you for, Cindy, because we looked at last week when I introduced Canadians that were watching to the bill presented C388 by Mr. Garnett, not so genius, to spend a bunch of money developing mines, which we probably don't own, but to develop a bunch of mining so that they could go directly to manufacturing artillery shells for Zelensky in the Ukraine. And this is supposed to be Canadian Conservative Party, Mr. Garnet Not So Genius. So yeah, left or right, they all want to make bank on their stock portfolio because they don't want peace. They all want war. So now we've got from Clown World Canada, Princess Trudeau in waiting. Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joy Lee is visiting China on an unannounced trip aimed at thawing relations between the two countries. The visit, the first by a Canadian foreign minister in nearly 7 years, is expected to include high-level talks with Chinese officials. Well, this might be the first official discussion in the last 7 years, but isn't the one guy we talked about the other night kind of been the ambassador to China, freed the two Michaels, all of that? So this is kind of either some gaslighting, astroturfing, just straight up lying, or some twist on things. But the trip comes amid strained relations over issues such as the Meng Wanzhou case and allegations of election interference. Jolie's visit is seen as an attempt to mend ties and explore avenues for collaboration on common challenges, including diplomacy, trade, and human rights. Well, I'll tell you what, anytime our government wants to look at human rights in a part of the discussion, then Canadians should be absolutely mortified by whatever kind of insanity that they might dream up. Because think about the human rights record of China's Uyghurs, and any of well, yeah, cover story. That's exactly what it is. Uh, Mr. Potatoes handlers over there are concerned, I believe, about all of the billions of dollars of funding that they have stuck into investing into Trudeau's vision of the post nation state. And I think they're probably about to throw Mr. Potato to the wolves. He's gone way too far. He's blown the cover. He's absolutely destroyed himself. He is going to do what all of these meat muppets do, and do a big cabinet shuffle and try to distract smoke and mirrors and bring in a new demolition squad for the remaining things he think might gain favor with Uncle Klaus and the CCP handlers. But I don't think that we're going to have to deal with them that much longer in that regard, because when you see the loyalists by Mr. Shameless O'Regan using the usual suspect, more time with family as he gets while the getting's good. We've got Miss Freeland trying to blow smoke that she just provided a location for Mr. John McKay's sedition caucus meeting. You've got Mr. Trudeau trying to court Mr. Carney into becoming the new finance minister. So the knives are out in Ottawa. The season of sacrificial political lamb is in. They're projecting that we, the people, are going to try to do something stupid. Yes, I read this as well today, that BlackRock tried to profit by shorting Trump media shares, saying it was a typo error. Absolutely. Well, hello, Playa del Carmen. I am sometimes envious. So in the meantime, and between times, let's take a little look from this 1 minute and 30-second clip that I think was kind of one of the gold nuggets, kind of wins the internet today for me, and I hope you all enjoy it as well. So let's
Canada's tax system is a criminal enterprise, sucking dry the $55,000 annual income of the average Joe. Trudeau and the Talking Timbit pocket a combined $11,419 in
Talking Timbit. I love that. That's the most creative description of Ms. Freeland I've ever heard.
income tax, while $3,957 disappears into employment insurance in the Canadian pension plan. Considering 32% of fuel costs in Ontario are taxes, a further $1,000 is seized from Joe and an additional $6,000 in property taxes. In total, Joe relinquishes $22,376 annually to the government. The remaining $32,624 is subject to a 13% sales tax every time he spends a dime, dwindling Joe's purchasing power to $28,380. Or half of his annual salary. Essentially, Joe works 6 months out of the year as a slave to the state. And what does Joe get in return for this modern day serf?
6 months to pay for Christmas.
A government that imprisoned him in his own home for years, coerced him into taking potentially harmful experimental pharmaceutical products, a healthcare system that ranks second to last among its peers, an economy spiraling towards disaster, as well as out-of-control crime rates and mass homelessness plaguing our streets. All of this courtesy of a cabal of traitorous bureaucrats who dream of eradicating private car ownership by 2030 and are actively pushing legislation that would throw Canadians in jail for daring to utter anything deemed hateful by their Orwellian standards. Tyranny isn't a distant threat, it's already entrenched in Canada's governance, eroding the freedoms fought for by generations past.
If that is not the most concise 90 seconds about Canada, guys, I don't know what else to say. That guy, should I play that again? Somebody give me a thumbs up if I should play that again, because I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to go and find this video. Put this video on your, the outside of whatever that you've got. And if this doesn't shatter people's matrix, and he brings the math and challenge people if anybody can argue with the math on this. This to me was so good. I'm going to play it again. Sorry, guys. I got a little extra time tonight. Let me play this again. Got to do this again.
Canada's tax system is a criminal enterprise, sucking dry the $55,000 annual income of the average Joe. Trudeau and the Talking Timbit pocket a combined $11,419 in income tax, while $3,957 disappears into employment insurance in the Canadian pension plan. Considering 32% of fuel costs in Ontario are taxes, a further $1,000 is seized from Joe and an additional $6,000 in property taxes. In total, Joe relinquishes $22,376 annually to the government. The remaining $32,624 is subject to a 13% sales tax every time he spends a dime, dwindling Joe's purchasing power to $28,380, or half of his annual salary. Essentially, Joe works 6 months out of the year as a slave to the state. And what does Joe get in return for this modern day serfdom? A government that imprisoned him in his own home for years, coerced him into taking potentially harmful experimental pharmaceutical products, a healthcare system that ranks second to last among its peers, an economy spiraling towards disaster, as well as out-of-control crime rates and mass homelessness plaguing our streets. All of this courtesy of a cabal of traitorous bureaucrats who dream of eradicating private car ownership by 2030 and are actively pushing legislation that would throw Canadians in jail for daring to utter anything deemed hateful by their Orwellian standards. Tyranny isn't a distant threat, it's already entrenched in Canada's governance, eroding the freedoms fought for by generations past.
That to me, I could watch that over and over and over and over again. I've just dropped it in the chat over on Rumble. I'm going to drop it into the chat on the other platforms here, so bear with me. X and on Wimkin. I hope you all get plugged over on Wimkin. That's my alternative to Facebook basically now. But that is yeah, I don't even know what else to say about that. So I'm going to pull up something else here that's been kind of just starting to hit the radar. And I think people need to get a grip on understanding exactly what this is before it gets too far out of hand. I've been getting some messages from people asking what is this Project 2025, because it's got the liberal, the Marxist crazy left absolutely losing their marbles. And I kind of saw this, and honestly, my first take of this, I didn't see this as being something that any actual government agency would assemble or create. So to me, I saw this as somebody's project, hopes perhaps, but when you read through it, it's not an absolutely, it's not the craziest stuff you've ever read, right? Um, but it's really got the left driving the insanity that they're trying to go after Donald with. So it's the reason I want to bring this up is so that people are going to be expecting it and being able to understand it and go and have a chance to look at it. So I got a clip from Mr. Glenn Beck, who is somebody that I pay attention to. I don't agree with 100% of everything he does, but he's gotten this far in this media space for a reason. And I think we'll listen to a few minutes of this. What is this, about 16 minutes? There's a commercial I'll cut out for you guys. But I think this is going to be an important one for us to be able to defend ourselves with. And if this is some stuff that we've been going over throughout the shows over the last couple of weeks, when we call them psyops, narratives, things for us to be wary of, labels. They need to come up with something in order to keep hurting us and pushing us, right? They need to continue to manifest the intimidation. And when the words that they use, typically that used to work, calling us a racist or a bigot, those things that don't work anymore. So they're always trying to manifest something else that we're guilty of, that they can shriek and squeal about. And so this is, if we're not careful, when they start to attach things like hostile to us, they will start to associate people to this. And I think people need to be fairly understood before they get caught in the Q thing.
One of, I believe, the real true patriots in America is Kevin Roberts. He's the Heritage Foundation president. We have gotten to know each other quite well over the last year or so.
That's who did this.
Oh, and I have tremendous respect for him, his courage, and what he is also doing at the Heritage Foundation. I had a family reunion this last weekend, and we had about 35 people here. And not everybody votes the same way that I do. In fact, some of my family, kind of rolls their eyes at some of the things I say, and that's fine. And we're still family, and we love each other. And we had a great conversation about what was going on, especially after the assassination attempt. And what came up over and over again was Project 2025. They're making it into a fascistic state. They're going to give the presidency so much more power. And I laughed and I said, that's not Project 2025. In fact, that's the opposite of what they're trying to do. This is something the Heritage Foundation has done every election year for many years, but never to this degree. And Kevin Roberts is here to tell us about it. Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Glenn, my friend, great patriot. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. So, Kevin, talk to people who are hearing from the media that this is nothing but a way to carve out special exemptions for the president for fascism.
The best way to start, and we'll go into detail, I know, is to say it is total projection by the left. I mean, you, perhaps more than anyone in our modern age, has shown us how whatever the left is accusing our side of is actually something they themselves are guilty of. And so Project 2025 is actually a corrective to the very thing the left is accusing us of doing. That is, they are the ones, particularly since LBJ's presidency in the 60s, who have accrued all of this power in the hands of unelected bureaucrats in DC. We feel that in every respect, every industry, every business, and even in most of us in our sort of everyday lives. But ultimately, what Project 2025 will do is address the problem of the administrative state in DC being weaponized against the everyday American. It's the biggest threat, as you know, the administrative state, Glenn, to a republic where citizens vote for a new president and a new direction, and yet nothing changes. In fact, what we will see if any aspects of Project 2025 are implemented is a diminishing of the scope of Washington, D.C., and an increase in freedoms, and the presidency and the legislative branch and the judicial branch all being returned to proper order. In other words, it really is, I think, the single best set of policy ideas about how we go back to the original founding vision as our founders had it of this constitutional republic.
Eden Pure is back with their famous Thunderstorm air purifier. It's their top seller air purifier. That is done one thing, I think, and they did, and that is no citizen should ever be afraid that the president of the United States is going to get them. That this election would put somebody in office where he could take away freedoms of people he didn't like or didn't agree with.
Like we have in Canada, right? Where when Bill 63, C-63 passes, I'll be going straight to prison. No ifs, ands, buts, or maybes about it for doing this, for talking.
I am absolutely against that, because I know it always comes around to bite whoever did it in the butt, because they'll eventually get to you. And that's not our system. This ensures that the president, no matter which side they're on, doesn't have that power to get his enemies or to just rule his way without the consent of Congress and the people.
That's right. And if that kind of abuse and weaponization against the American people using the administrative state we've seen against the right, the political right by President Biden, were for some reason to be done by a conservative administration, we at Project 2025 and at Heritage, to your point, Glenn, would be just as apoplectic. Every one of us, from the far left to the far right, wherever someone is on that political spectrum, needs to wake up in this country and believe that of all entities, the federal government is going to be objective and neutral and fair and just and equal in how it treats all of our citizens. And so the real problem that we're trying to address isn't just the accrual of power since the 60s in particular. It is, without getting engaged in hyperbole, which you know I detest, addressing the weaponization of the federal government against individual citizens. I'll give you a quick story that is a personal reference, but it's emblematic of what people feel. I, as you know, am a traditional Roman Catholic. Doesn't mean that people have to agree with that, but that's my religious liberty and my family's to practice that. We have, over the last few years, those of us in that category, not just been fearful of, but we know the following has happened. We know this from the director of the FBI and the attorney general of Biden's administration. They have targeted faithful traditional Catholics because we like the Latin Mass as somehow being domestic terrorists. It's that kind.
Sound familiar, guys? So what we first saw here, at first, this poster here, this is a projection. Exactly, Cindy. This is a projection. This is manifested. This is propaganda by the left to project that 2025 is when fascism starts under Mr. Trump. So that's kind of, part and parcel of what they're projecting into this. But I think that for Canadians, even my stuff is not working correctly again. For Canadians, their organization is something that we could look to learn from, as far as for downsizing the bureaucracy and limiting their capabilities to weaponize them, whatever it is that they want against an innocent, unsuspecting population. So, well, that's what I think that I'm going to try to get a hold of Kevin Roberts and see what he thinks in being a good neighbor would look like in trying to come into alignment with some of those principles and ideas.
Of nonsense that Project 2025 would bring to an end if the next administration so desires to implement it.
So has Trump signed on for any of this?
Look, it's informal. The president, of course, has distanced himself from this, which is, I think, a smart political move given how successful the left's mischaracterization of this has been. Ultimately, though, to your question, great ideas and great people rise to the top. And so without it all being presumptuous, which I am not, and Project 2025 is designed to sort of be in the background, those great ideas and those great people, I think, are going to be part of this conversation once the Trump-Vance administration takes office. So I would, for people trying to make sense of President Trump's comments and his campaign's comments and the project, understand that we are in the political season right now, and soon we will move into the transition and policy-making season. And I just have great confidence in the policies and people who are part of it, and think that we're going to have a great era of good, common sense policy reform that ultimately is sort of neither conservative nor liberal. It's just right, and it's just common sense.
I will.
Well, I think I'm gonna stop that right there, because I think that says what people need to know about what people are saying about this. It is not Trump endorsed. It is not Trump's statements. This is a project by the Heritage Foundation, and they want to bring ideas to the table and have a discussion and dialogue about how to decentralize and dethrone the deep state, literally. So I hope that helps people at least understand, gives them an idea, and I encourage people to go and look at this. I know I'll be looking at the U.S. Heritage Foundation and to see, and I'm going to try and reach out to Mr. Roberts on that. But to help differentiate fact from fiction, what's real, what is not, and arm yourselves accordingly in the information warfare age. So I don't know if there is anything that I skipped over that I meant to touch on, but yeah, we're going to see a lot happening here in Canada over the next couple of days. I'm going to give you guys my 30-second analysis going into the weekend. Of course, tomorrow is Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce, and I'm sure he's got a presentation plan for everybody tomorrow. I know that he's pretty keyed up for this one, so I hope you guys tune into that as well tomorrow. But I also expect that kind of last minute tomorrow something will come down the pipe about a cabinet shuffle, and we'll get a chance to see who the final pieces are on the table for the Liberal Party in their salvage situation here going into the downside of 2024 into election season. But we already know that he is diametrically opposed to anything conservative. He is pot committed 100%. He is committed to his role in the WEF Fourth Reich, and they're desperate. They're desperate. So on the other side of that, there's some big news happening in Ireland and the UK right now, as well as Germany. Germany pulled a Zelensky and banned and shut down and raided a pro-Trump news organization. Probably not the smartest thing to do, given that Trump's probably going to be the next president and his new VP, Mr. Vance, is absolutely done with squandering US dollars on German foolishness and shenanigans. And that tie is going to be severed, and Germany is going to be encouraged to stand on their own economic feet very, very shortly. So we're going to see some big shakeups. Stay tuned, folks. Things are happening exponentially quick. Tomorrow is Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks. What else can I tell you or leave you off with? Again, get all the extras on Substack. We depend on you guys to help us get this message out there. And whether it's me or anybody else, guys, this is unrestricted warfare at this point in time, and I don't think that there is anybody more critical to the battle that we're in right now than your local trusted journalists, your independents, and they all need your support and help. If this is a platform that you trust and want to keep on the tip of the spear of the battle, I am always in critical need of your guys' help, and you guys can do that there. Or you can, if you just want to buy me a coffee, you can do that here down below there as well. So on that note, I love you all. Stay mighty, my fellow friends, patriots, family, and hostages. And I will, I should throw a quick message out there for this as well. If you want my mailing address, this is where you can get it from. Send me an email at contact@whatsupcanada.org. And also send me an email there if you want to join in. We're going to have kind of an informal group picnic on a Zoom call this Sunday, likely be 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But send me an email at this location as well if you want to come and hang out with us and get a personal time with me and to quiz me about whatever you might have for questions. And we're going to talk about some of the reasons why I have some of the limited partners that I do and why I'm so loyal to them and what they can do to help us moving forward in this crazy world. You can send me an email at that contact number, again, contact as well. And again, help out every struggling independent journalist out there, not just me, but all of them. And I love you guys all. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 o'clock Central.